All right, what's going on, guys? I'm here to talk to you guys about one of, I think, the most underrated cameras. It seems like no one knows about this camera, or no one's talking about it or something. There's barely any YouTube videos about it, but it does 4K at 120 frames per second, 10-bit. And 240, 1080. It does ProRes. They're talking about a firmware update that's going to bring RAW to this camera. It's kind of crazy, and I have it in my hands right now. Okay, I'm talking about the ZCam E2. All right, so this is the ZCam right here. I have it configured in pretty much my favorite setup. It's what I think to be probably the most reliable setup, where I'm using my phone as a monitor. I'm recording to a CFast card internally. And the reason why I want to use my phone as a monitor here is just because when you are using this camera, the menu system looks like this, and you have a limited amount of buttons, which is cool. It makes it so that you don't have any space on here being used for a screen other than this. However, it takes some getting used to. I was able to get used to it after a couple of days, but I just much prefer using the phone. When you use the phone as a monitor, you get access to your exposure settings, your white balance, everything in a really cool way. It's really finesse. It makes it one of the more usable cameras on the market, actually, as opposed to using something like a Sony, because the menus are smartphone style instead of the strange menu that they have on here, and what you see on a lot of DSLM cameras. The ZCam E2 has a lot of features, right? There's a lot of ways you can hook this up. Outside of being able to record ProRes and 10-bit H.265 at ridiculous frame rates, you have a lot of connectivity, okay? All right, so yeah, I'm gonna hold this up real quick, and you can see all the ports that are on the back. There's Wi-Fi, Ethernet, USB-C, and all of those ports are really usable, right? I've used the USB-C port to record to an external hard drive. Right now I'm using it to use my phone as a monitor, and it works really well. I've used the Ethernet to live stream the YouTube. And you can also hook your phone up or iPad, or other devices via the Ethernet port if you're using the USB-C as a hard drive. There's an XLR in. You do have to get a breakout cable for that, so that's an additional cost. But the fact that it has it and phantom power is a good plus. They have this port, which is, I don't know what that's for at this point on here. Probably going to be for some accessories in the future. The HDMI. And they have an SDI adapter in case you prefer SDI over HDMI. So they really kind of thought of everything when it comes to connectors. There's a headphone jack and a eighth inch, yeah, headphone jack and 1/8 inch mic input as well. So a lot of connectivity and a lot of things that you can do with this camera. Another way that I set it up pretty often is with an external monitor, like a 7-inch monitor via HDMI. When I'm recording to like a USB-C hard drive, that's worked out pretty well for me. But yeah, there's just a lot that you can do with this camera, and I'm really shocked that no one's talking about it that much, which is why I'm making this video. What I'm gonna do now is I'm gonna show you guys some of the features and why this camera is so cool, and kind of talk to you guys about my experience with the camera. There's a lot of features that this camera has that a lot of other cameras in this price range don't have, right? Of course, there's the high frame rate stuff that I'm sure you probably clicked on this for, and that really sets this camera apart. But one of the understated things are the fact that it does have autofocus. Now, the autofocus on this camera is not great. It's not Sony or Canon level, but you are able to use the touchscreen on the phone actually and tap to focus. And that comes in really handy, like if you just want to do interview style setups or something like that, you can tap to focus if you have a autofocus lens that works with this camera, and then switch it to manual focus and leave it locked. It's just really useful because it is a little bit quicker than having to find focus yourself. But like I said, the autofocus isn't the best, right? So you probably don't want to try and use it to track moving subjects or anything like that. I would say the autofocus performance is similar to like older Panasonic cameras. Panasonic's autofocus is actually getting okay now. This kind of hunts a little bit too much for me to trust it in like a continuous autofocus setting, but as a tool to just pull like a single focus, it's pretty useful. So I'm gonna show you guys what autofocusing with this camera looks like right now. So right now I'm recording a little autofocus test. It might be a little shaky, but you can see how it looks. If I just touch the screen, it'll rack focus to the front. You can see the peaking marks show up here, and you can just tell that it's a little bit sharper. You tap on the background and it focuses. That's more of the way that I would use this autofocus as opposed to trying to let it focus for itself continuously. At this point, I would like lock my lens to manual focus after I've achieved focus. So right now I have the 12 mil Olympus on here. It's one of the supported autofocus lenses. Not every lens is officially supported for autofocus, so that might be something you'd want to look into before you get this camera. You can check their site, all that information is there. And I'm hooked up with this adapter. You can get these on Amazon. I'll drop the links for everything. I attached a bunch of these cold shoe mounts so I can mount different things like audio equipment and such. I have a phone, you know, kind of mount here. I have a small NPF on here. This will run for like maybe an hour or so, which is not bad, but you definitely want to get a bigger battery than this. I could also drop links to those, but everybody knows where to get NPFs. And really, one of the favorite or one of the best things that I got, I think, for this is this wooden handle. Before I was using an L bracket with this, and I also tried using a metal handle that I had, but I definitely had to go and spring for a wooden handle because it makes it really comfortable to use. Actually, with the wooden handle, it's one of my more comfortable camera experiences ever, but it is an additional cost. And that's something to consider about getting a camera like this. Of course, you can always use your phone as a monitor, and that might save you money, but you definitely want a 7-inch monitor at some point for certain types of shooting. And you're gonna need a good amount of like accessories. Although, like, if you really need to, you can actually use this to monitor like this tiny screen right here. Is this in focus?
Yeah.
Okay, you can use this tiny screen on here as a monitor. Like, I don't know who would ever want to do that. It's kind of nuts, but you can technically use this camera, you know, as a standalone unit if you need to, but, you know, accessories are definitely needed. Oh yeah, and I'm hooking my phone up with just a USB-C to USB adapter. Like, adapters definitely are supported. Yeah, adapters definitely are supported on this. I've seen an Ethernet adapter used to connect to an iPad, the USB-C, you see it's working now, which is cool. And if you want to go cableless, like if you don't like the idea of these cables swinging around, you can use Wi-Fi. However, I found the Wi-Fi not to be as reliable, of course, as a cable. You can attach any kind of Wi-Fi antenna, so if you want to make this like insanely strong with the signal, you can, but you know, I just trust a wired connection a lot more. There's also like the problem of like interference, or if there's so many people on that band, like, you know, things could get dicey. So I suggest like a cable. Also, as far as like recording, CFast is like what they say is officially the best, most reliable solution. I haven't actually had any issues using USB-C to a hard drive, but they say that CFast is supposed to be more reliable. I actually use a CFast to SSD kind of arrangement, and that works pretty well for me. And I don't have to pay an insane amount for a high capacity CFast card. I'm back at my desk, and what you guys are seeing now is the ZCam E2 shooting me. So I've used it on a bunch of different things. I'm just going to talk about some of the different things to be mindful of with this camera, my experience shooting with it, and giving you guys some tips for troubleshooting some things, some issues that people have apparently had with this camera. So first of all, shooting experience so far has been really great. Here's some footage. So I was shooting that at like really high ISOs. Right now I can't remember right off the top of my head, but I know at some points I was like hitting ISO 16,000 and stuff like that because I didn't light at all. I was just using whatever was at the venue, trying to see what this camera could really do. And of course it's not like the greatest, but it's really usable. Like all of these high ISOs and low light situations for the most part are really usable, which is a really awesome feature of this camera. By the way, if I seem a little bit distracted or whatnot, my cat's actually on my lap. Say hi. And she is not leaving me alone, so she's just gonna be on my lap for the video. Yeah, anyway. So high ISO was really cool. All of the stuff I shot at 4K 60 just to give me the most flexibility. So when you're shooting on a camera like this, yes, it has 4K 120, but one of the things to keep in mind is that the faster that you make your frame rate, the higher you're gonna have to push your ISO because you're gonna be using faster shutter speeds, you know, as you increase the frame rate. So 60 is a good compromise that lets you not have to push the ISO too ridiculously high. Also, one of the pros of that is that you also have audio. When you shoot 4K 120 on this camera, the audio is out of sync. It has a audio track, so you do have it, but it doesn't slow it down in camera like it slows down the footage in camera. You could do that in post, but that's another thing to keep in mind since this was like a music, you know, live music thing. I had a mic hooked up to the camera. That's how I captured that audio. And I wanted to have the option to have slow-mo footage when I needed and also to have audio, and 4K 60 allows me to do that. So, you know, that's something to keep in mind, just knowing about the audio issue with 4K 120. A lot of times you're not gonna actually ever use that audio anyway, but it's just something to know. With the configuration that I have, I found it to be really convenient. When I'm shooting like stuff like a live concert or something like what you guys just saw, right? It's really convenient to just use my phone as a monitor, keep things nice and compact. I shot on like a 12mm lens for a lot of stuff, handheld. It looks good because it's a wide field of view, so I can handhold it. I don't need a gimbal or anything like that. Just be relatively steady. A little bit of shake isn't like the worst thing if you're going for that, you know, wide angle of view handheld field. It kind of works. And you know, that's why I would suggest getting like a good comfortable side handle grip for this. Although I don't have a cage would also be good for that, make things more stable so that you don't always have to feel like you need a gimbal, because this doesn't have a stabilized sensor. Some people have experienced issues using the app over Wi-Fi. Right now I'm actually using it tethered. I'm like monitoring myself here. I'm using it tethered because my phone wasn't charged, so it charges my phone while I do this, which is another good plus. But if you are having issues with the app with Wi-Fi, like what I experienced at first was you could connect via the cable, but when you tried to add the device, even though you connected to the ZCam's Wi-Fi, it wasn't working. So in case you have any issues with that, I'm gonna kind of show you guys how to fix that or how to do that on your phone. So as you can see, I have the app working on my phone wirelessly. There's no cable at the bottom here. It's working, right? And one of the things that was an issue for me is that I couldn't actually get it to connect in the app, although it was connected via Wi-Fi, right? And the way that I fixed that was by going into my actual settings on my iPhone. I'm already kind of there, but I scrolled all the way down to the Z Camera app and I toggled cellular data. So try messing around with that, and that might fix your issue if you're having trouble with the Wi-Fi connectivity. And I don't know if you guys could tell there, but the app in Wi-Fi mode was kind of laggy, which is why I always prefer to actually use it with the cable, like I was saying earlier on in the video. But it is an option. Like, it's kind of hard to do. I know it's like just in my bedroom, but I have like Philips Hue lights and like all this stuff. So like signal is very crowded in this location. So like using wireless can be very inconsistent unless you want to attach like an even bigger antenna than the one it comes with, because it does use a generic like antenna connector. But I don't know. I just prefer to just use the cable. You can't go wrong with the actual physical connection. But it is good to have that option because, like, having like a director wirelessly monitor on an iPad while you're like actually at the camera, like if you're the DP or something, is pretty cool. And in a lot of situations, it works pretty well. It's just not as consistent as an actual cable. But plus side to that, like I was talking about earlier, is you can use USB-C to Lightning for your phone, or you could even use Ethernet. So you have a lot of options, which is like one of the big themes with this camera that's really awesome, is like just the amount of options that you have. So I'm sure you guys want to see footage. So I'm going to link a Google Drive folder where you guys can go and see a bunch of like footage of, and like download it, grade it if you want, do whatever. It's just a bunch of random clips of stuff that I've shot because, like, I don't know, I'm just not the type to just go and do like a bunch of tests like very methodically. It's just not very fun for me and I don't want to do it. So I will give you guys access to a whole bunch of clips though if you want to just try grading a bunch of stuff or like just seeing what the footage looks like and all these different modes and stuff like that. Yeah, Google Drive link in the description. Google Drive link in the description because I know a lot of you guys care about seeing a lot of footage, so have at it. Overall, I've really been enjoying this camera. I have like no complaints really at this point. It's been great. It's good in low light. Does like really good like high frame rate stuff. Hasn't failed me yet really. So I mean, I haven't had it for that long. Only like, how long have I had it at this point? Maybe like a month or two, something like that. Probably like a month, maybe a little bit more. But yeah, seems pretty good so far. And one of the things that I like is the Facebook group for this camera is really active. So if you have questions about stuff, there are people in there who are like constantly answering questions. The CEO of ZCam is always in there, like answering questions, letting people know like what features are coming next in firmware and things like that. They're very transparent about, different things going on with the company, which is pretty cool. And another thing that a lot of people might not be as interested in, it's more of like a niche thing, but like I'm a developer also outside of like all that. I know like people probably had no clue, but like I'm also a developer, so the fact that they have like an open SDK is kind of cool. Like I've messed around with it a little bit, use like HTTP calls. This is getting very like, only a couple of people will care about this, but when you hook it up via Ethernet, it's pretty cool because you can make commands over HTTP and make the camera do things. So technically you could write your own scripts and stuff like that to automate things on the camera, which I think is really, really cool. It's not something that everyone will care about, but the fact that they leave it open for people to do that, I think is really cool. This camera hasn't been out for that long, and I've only had it for like maybe like a month, maybe a little bit more. So I wouldn't necessarily call this like my final review of the camera, but I just wanted to kind of bring awareness to it because it's been treating me really well. And not a lot of people know about it. There's not a lot of videos about it, not a lot of stuff about it. And I think this camera is like super awesome. Yeah, if you're thinking about getting a camera dedicated to video and you have around a budget of $2,000, this is definitely an option that you should consider. It's a really versatile like camera. It's just like kind of like a blank slate to me, and you can rig it out however you want, which I think is pretty cool. Let me know what you guys thought of this video in the comment section below. If you have any questions for me, any questions about the camera, leave them in the comment section below. Anything you guys would want to see in the future about this camera, I could definitely make a follow-up video. I might make like a final review a couple months down the line or something like that. So if you guys have any questions or things that I didn't cover, make sure you let me know, okay? And if you just want to chat, stuff like that, hit me up on Instagram, follow me. All my links will be in the description. I also sell like presets, Lightroom presets and stuff if you want to support the channel. Comes with a free LUT that I kind of use on everything. That's pretty awesome. So yeah, you know, go ahead, spread the word about this camera because I think it's really, really cool. Like the fact that you can hook up your phone, the fact that it's so modular, all that stuff is really awesome. So give this video a thumbs up, tell people about this, get the word out, and thank you for watching. Oh yeah, and subscribe if you don't subscribe to the channel. Check out my stuff, check out my Instagram, my site, everything. You know, if you feel like you vibe with it, you know, you might want to follow me everywhere, you know. Yeah.